Okay everyone, I am, as promised, going to go through and show how the structure was modeled on the example file provided, massing on steel roof framing. So what we have here is basically a rectangular building with sloping structure provided at the topmost story. Now, some little secrets here on how this was constructed. If you look at the very edge, you'll see that there is that gray piece of structure that's running around the outside. So that was drawn at the roof plan. And what I did was I took the HSS structural beam object and I made a copy of it, or I made a type, an HSS tube size that was just 1 inch by 1 inch. So I took the regular HSS hollow structural beam and I duplicated it to make a 1 by 1 tube size. So now that that's done, I went into my roof plan and I zoomed in on a corner and I used the beam tool using that 1 by 1 size, and I drew it all the way around the building on the inside edge of my wall. So you can see the building wall there, and I simply drew those HSS tubes on the inside face of the wall. So now when we go back and look in 3D, those HSS tubes have been placed at the perimeter all around the building. So the height of your HSS tube will of course depend on the height of the parapet wall that you need. So once that was put in place, in my roof plan, I then added my joists. Now you can also add them in 3D as well. So here, let's add another one of these joists so you can see how it's done. So I use the 3D snapping option, and my beams, of course, have been put in place, the main beams that run down the center of the building, and they span from that HSS tube to the steel column, HSS column, that I've placed in the middle. So those column heights, I've got those set up as required to provide my drainage. So here it's dropping 16 inches over the length of that beam. So the beam is sloping, but the HSS tube around the outside is flat. So now when I add another beam like I've got here, I will use the 3D snapping mode and I will go from the HSS tube on the side and come in and snap to my beam in the center. And so the joist that gets created now, its slope is going to be dependent upon where it lands on our beam, and of course remembering that the other end of the beam at the outside wall is at the same elevation as all of the other beams that are drawn. Now back in my roof plan, the new joist that I've added is here. Now you can see that I just used 3D snapping and I kind of arbitrarily placed that beam to begin with, but what I will do is I will use a detail line and I'm going to place that line vertically on my screen. And now I'm going to use the Align tool to align that open web steel joist that I've just drawn to the detail line. So here, because the level of detail for this view is set to coarse, all of my structural members only show as a single line anyway. So it makes it really easy to align that joist to the 2D line that I've drawn moments ago. So now my joist is perfectly aligned to that detail line. So we go back and look at it in 3D and you can see that that open web steel joist is indeed fully parallel to the other ones that are placed. So when I'm doing sloping structure in a building, that is a trick that I will use. I will put in my columns, set their heights, then I will draw my perimeter HSS to get a flat part to snap to around the perimeter, and then I will draw my sloping roof beams using 3D snapping, using the HSS tube on the edges, and then using the column at the other end. Okay, so that is the structural framing portion. In the next section here, we will talk about massing.